You are watching the world 24/7 on the NDTV network. I am Parmeshwar Bawa. An action-packed bulletin lined up for you. Let's begin with the top headlines you need to know. US President Donald Trump has said that he would increase the tariffs charged on Indian imports very substantially over the next 24 hours because of India's continued purchases of Russian oil. Amid stiffening ties between the United States and India over Russian oil imports, National Security Advisor Ajit Doval arrived in Moscow for a visit aimed at strengthening ties between Russia and India. This as Russia backs India amid the US tariff threat. Calling India and the Philippines as two countries which are friends by choice and partners by destiny, Prime Minister Modi, who held talks with visiting President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., announced the elevation of bilateral ties to a strategic partnership. A year after former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was toppled from power and left the country, Bangladesh has announced national elections. Bangladesh will hold elections in February 2026, Muhammad Yunus has said. US President Donald Trump has said that tariffs on pharmaceutical imports could reach 250%, the steepest rate he has proposed for this sector. A big focus. US President Donald Trump has said that he would raise the tariff on India very substantially over the next 24 hours, stating that while India is set to offer the US zero tariffs under a trade deal, it would not be good enough due to its purchase of Russian oil. On Monday, too, as we had reported, Trump had warned that he would raise the tariff on India substantially, saying that India was not only buying massive amounts of Russian oil, but also selling it on the open market for big profits. By the way, when asked about the price of oil if Russian supplies were removed from the market, Donald Trump said that he was not concerned about prices as the United States is drilling at levels never seen before. But when asked about the trade deal with India that seemed imminent, Donald Trump said the sticking point with India is that its tariffs are too high. Let's just listen in to the US President's latest remarks.
Never set a percentage, but we'll be doing quite a bit of that. We'll see what happens over the next fairly short period of time, but we'll see what happens. Yep. You know, they have a meeting tomorrow. We have a meeting with Russia tomorrow. We're going to see what happens. We'll make that determination at that time.
My colleague Mohammed Ghazali has been tracking all the finer developments for us. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, Trump warning of a tariff hike in 24 hours as Russia says countries can choose trade partners, and as Ajit Doval touches down in Moscow?
Oh, yes. So all eyes will be on the Russia-US talks because Steve Witkoff is expected to meet the Russian delegation there. But Mr. Trump's statement reiterating the fact that he's going to put tariffs on India, more of comes as a threat. More of comes as how Mr. Trump has been weaponizing tariff. And also he was confronted and was asked that what about the fact that India is not the most tariff nation, and also the Indian government has issued a kind of details of how US itself sort of buys stuff from Russia, and many other countries from EU who are accusing India of dealing with Russia themselves are purchasing items from Russia or dealing in business with Russia. So why no action against them? And for that, Mr. Trump had no response. It more so appears that Mr. Trump is very upset that on one side he has not been able to stop the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and on the other hand, India has not come out clearly backing his statement saying that he was the one who stopped the war between India and Pakistan. India has completely rejected the fact that there was any foreign hand or involvement of any foreign leader which brought in the ceasefire between the two countries. And perhaps that has irked Mr. Trump that he started claiming for more than 30 times that he was the one who brought the ceasefire, and then he went on to that mode of attacking India and threatening India with tariffs. So all eyes will be on that meeting between Russia and the United States as well, because Russia has also come out backing India, saying that no country should be browbeaten or threatened to choose a trading partner. Every sovereign country is independent to choose a trading partner as well.
Ali, as always, thanks so much for joining us with the lowdown. And amid stiffening ties between the US and India over Russian oil imports, National Security Advisor G. Doval arrived in Moscow for a visit aimed at strengthening ties between Russia and India. In fact, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar is also expected to follow later in this month. Now, you must note that this visit, it had actually been scheduled in advance, but I'll tell you why it's so significant at the moment. It has renewed urgency because of US President Donald Trump's comments, as Mohammad Ghazali was reporting, regarding India's relationship with Russia. Do note that on Tuesday, Russia said sovereign countries have the right to select their partners in trade and economic cooperation based on their interests. Staying with updates from the United States, well, Donald Trump has said that tariffs on pharmaceutical imports could reach 250%, which is actually the steepest rate he has proposed for this sector. Trump, who in July threatened 200% duties, wants to motivate drug companies to move operations to the United States. Several industry giants like Johnson & Johnson have announced US investment plans this year in a bid to build goodwill. But the complexity of supply chains means the company's moves are unlikely to reduce US reliance on foreign sources, as many reports have highlighted as well. But Trump's latest threat comes as major drug firms report earnings this week. In fact, Pfizer raised its profit outlook on Tuesday despite looming tariffs, with its CEO hopeful that the duties will start out small. Meanwhile, hundreds of people gathered in New York to protest against Israel's war on Gaza and demand that the Trump administration put pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to allow more humanitarian aid into Gaza. This protest, the visuals of which are playing on your screens at the moment, was organized by If Not Now, which is a Jewish-American anti-occupation group, and it began at Columbus Circle and ended outside the Trump International Hotel, where several people were arrested for blocking the road. Palestinian officials have said 175 people have died from hunger in Gaza since the beginning of the war. 93 of them are children. Now, more than 40 people protesting the war and worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza were arrested outside the Trump International Hotel in New York on Monday evening. We have some reactions coming in from those who were demonstrating outside. Listen in to what's happening in New York.
I think the tide is turning, and I'm glad that people are changing their mind, but I do think if you have just realized what is happening in Gaza and are naming it for what it is now, you're obligated to come out into the streets and be really loud in naming that this is a genocide, that this is forced intentional starvation, and that doing everything you can to make sure that it stops.
Let's turn our attention now to Canada, where just as India and Canada were making cautious moves to improve strained ties, visuals of an embassy of the Republic of Khalistan on Canadian soil have risked derailing hard-earned diplomatic progress. A symbolic embassy of Khalistan, allegedly set up in Surrey, has reignited tensions between India and Canada, even as CSIS warns of Khalistani extremists operating from Canadian soil. My colleague Maha Siddiqui has been tracking the latest from Vancouver. She joins us live at the moment for further details on what exactly is happening and what exactly this so-called embassy of the Republic of Khalistan is. Maha, take us through the latest details.
So this board has appeared, which says that it's as it is clear, a self-proclaimed embassy of the Republic of Khalistan. It's a makeshift board that has been put up on an installation which is working as a community center and in the premises of the Guru Nanak Sikh Gurudwara. So this is actually supposed to be a community center where this board has been put up, allegedly by the Sikhs for Justice group, which is a banned outfit. And this clearly is a matter of concern, not just because they have put up that board, but because this is a sensitive issue, the issue of pro-Khalistan secessionism that has been growing on Canadian soil and an issue that India has raised constantly with Canada. And as you rightly pointed out, Parmeshwar, just at a time when it appeared that relationship would improve between India and Canada, with Mark Carney having met Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the sidelines of the G7 summit only last month, it appeared that this issue would be taken care of by the Canadian side and that both sides will be able to move on beyond the 2023 episode on the back of the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. And significantly, it is the same Gurudwara that he led and where you were shot dead in the parking lot where this board for Republic of Khalistan has come up. So we'll have to wait to see now how the authorities in Canada react, because one of the important aspects that is being pointed out here is that for this particular community center where this board has come up, there was some grant that was given by the provincial government here in British Columbia. And therefore, it is important to see how they respond to this situation where public funds are clearly being misused in this case to create this secessionist sentiment.
Maha, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the lowdown, the latest details coming in. As Maha Siddiqui is highlighting, the development comes at a time when ties between our two countries had shown tentative signs of a thaw, but we'll of course revert to Maha for the latest as soon as Canadian authorities react. Let's turn our attention now to the other big story we're tracking. India and the Philippines announced an upgraded strategic partnership with a particular focus on deepening defense and maritime cooperation, as both countries seek to navigate their security concerns due to China's increasing assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. The announcement followed talks between Prime Minister Modi and visiting Philippines President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. 13 agreements were signed, including 3 in the defense sector. And as you know, President Marcos, on a 5-day visit to India, he has said the two countries had agreed to continue leveling up our collaboration in defense and security. India, he noted, would be the 5th strategic partner of the Philippines. Just take a look at the significant takeaways so far.
Friends by choice, partners by destiny. India and the Philippines' ties have entered a new era, signaling a major diplomatic shift in the Indo-Pacific. Amid China's growing influence in the region, the two countries upgraded ties to a strategic partnership. The goal? To counter Beijing's aggressive tactics in New Delhi and Manila's backyard. On his maiden visit to India, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. held bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi and Foreign Minister Jaishankar, inking 9 key pacts. Amid Trump's tariff threats, New Delhi and Manila also launched talks on a bilateral preferential trade agreement.
मजबूत हो रहे रक्षा संबंध गहरे आपसी विश्वास का प्रतीक है। मैरीटाइम नेशंस के रूप में दोनों देशों के बीच मैरीटाइम कोऑपरेशन स्वाभाविक भी है और आवश्यक भी।
Prime Minister Modi and I have committed to bring our collaboration to bear on shared concerns, a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region, security and rule of law in the maritime commons, supply chain resilience, food security, countering terrorism, and other traditional and non-traditional threats.
Yet, there was more to this visit. India and the Philippines conducted their first joint naval exercises in the South China Sea, with Chinese Navy ships lurking in the shadows. While China accused both countries of undermining regional peace and stability, India made its position clear.
Our position on the South China Sea is clear and consistent. We consider the South China Sea as a part of global commons, and we support freedom of navigation and overflight in the region and legitimate commerce through the waters of the South China Sea.
Both New Delhi and Manila face territorial disputes with Beijing. India has also supplied its BrahMos supersonic cruise missile systems to Philippines and is having talks on submarine infrastructure. As the Indo-Pacific heats up, New Delhi and Manila are charting a new course together. Disha Bagchi for NDTV.
Well, now let's turn our attention to our neighborhood. Bangladesh will hold its first election since protests toppled its former Prime Minister next February. The country's interim leader has said on the anniversary of her overthrow. Muhammad Yunus made the announcement at the end of a day of celebrations for what some have called the country's second liberation. By the way, Tuesday also saw Mr. Yunus reiterate promises on widespread reform, reading out the July Declaration, which seeks to recognize the student-led protests which toppled Hasina in the Constitution. Before we get in an update from my colleague Saurabh Gupta, let's just listen in to Muhammad Yunus's latest reaction.
এবার আমাদের সর্বশেষ দায়িত্ব পালনের পালা, নির্বাচন অনুষ্ঠান। আজ এই মহান দিবসে আপনাদের সামনে এই বক্তব্য রাখার পর থেকেই আমরা আমাদের সর্বশেষ এবং সবচেয়ে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ অধ্যায়ে প্রবেশ করব। আমরা এবার একটা নির্বাচিত সরকারের কাছে দায়িত্ব হস্তান্তরের প্রক্রিয়া শুরু করব। অন্তর্বর্তী সরকারের পক্ষ থেকে আমি প্রধান নির্বাচন কমিশনারের কাছে চিঠি পাঠাবো যেন নির্বাচন কমিশন আগামী রমজানের আগে 2026 সালের ফেব্রুয়ারি মাসে জাতীয় নির্বাচন অনুষ্ঠানের আয়োজন করেন।
Saurabh Gupta has been tracking the latest developments for us. He joins us live at the moment. Saurabh, so Bangladesh is expected to hold elections in the next 6 months?
Absolutely. This is a very important announcement by Muhammad Yunus, the chief advisor of the interim government that's in charge of running the country since the Sheikh Hasina-led Bangladesh Awami League government was toppled last year on the 5th of August after massive protests gripped the country. Initially, those protests began as an anti-quota protest, but soon it took on a much larger dimension, leading to the fall of the Sheikh Hasina government eventually. There has been pressure on Muhammad Yunus to announce elections. That was one of the promises. That was one of the key mandates of the interim government that was sworn in the absence of an elected government. In February 26, before the conclusion of Ramzan or before Ramzan, the elections will be concluded. And that's the promise that was made earlier. All political parties that have been allowed to contest the elections are on board, including major parties in Bangladesh like the Bangladesh Nationalist Party and the newly formed National Citizens Party, which was an offshoot of the protests. What is also important is that the Bangladesh Awami League, the Sheikh Hasina-led party, has been banned from contesting elections, and therefore they will not be a part of the February 2026 elections. But all in all, good news for Bangladesh. Finally, the country will have a politically elected government with a political mandate.
Thank you so much for joining us with the latest details. Slipping into a quick break, back in a moment with the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned. Arvinder Singh Behel, an 80-year-old adventurer who has traveled to every country on earth, and I mean he's visited all 196 countries and all 7 continents, from the icy frontiers of the North and South Poles to skydiving above Mount Everest. He actually soared into space on the 3rd of August aboard Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin NS-34 mission. He was among a crew of 6 passengers who embarked on a recent 10-minute journey into outer space. And he's back safe and sound, and he joins us on NDTV. Sir, thank you so much for making time for us. Let's begin with, how did you feel crossing the Kármán line?
It was very interesting to see. As soon as we take our harnesses off, you just float in the air, and you basically, for the first second of 2, you're kind of disoriented. And then you just float around. We were 6 in the cabin, in the capsule, and some people were doing somersaults, some people were just floating around. And some people had taken some things that they wanted to float in the air, float in the no atmosphere. So I had taken 2 things that I floated in the air for a little while. Then I came back and sat in my seat before the warning light came up. But it's very interesting. It's very unique. You see the darkness of space, and you see the curvature of the earth. It's very hard to explain the feeling. I still haven't come down to earth. I'm still mentally high on my experience.
Well, Mr. Behel, it sounds exhilarating to say the least. In fact, our viewers may not know this, but Mr. Behel's fascination, we're told, with space travel began long before Blue Origin actually became a household name. Over a decade ago, he reserved a spot with Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic as future astronaut number 326, right, Mr. Behel? But those plans stalled when the company ended operations in 2023. But Mr. Behel has kept his dream alive, as you can tell. So was there a specific moment during that flight, looking back at Earth or feeling weightless, that made you reflect on your life journey?
Well, the weightlessness you can experience, they have parabolic flights, you can do that. But to do a real thing in space, it's completely different. It's a completely different experience. Because, you've been blasted off a rocket which is carrying almost 6,000 pounds of a hydrogen which rockets you up, throws you up. I mean, it's amazing. It's scary. You're sitting in this capsule and you look out of the window and there's fire all around you. It's scary. It's nervous, but the excitement takes over the nervousness.
So how was this space journey then different from other adventures that you've been a part of, which includes traveling across 196 countries, all 7 continents, from the icy frontiers to the pyramids, you name it?
Well, I like adventures, and I think this was probably the most adventurous thing I've done. I've skydived over Mount Everest, I skydived over pyramids, I bungee jumped in over Zambezi River, but this was a little unique and more of an adventure. And I'm kind of an adventure junkie, so it was very, very exhilarating for me.
Well, we can tell you're an adventure junkie, Mr. Bahel, but now that you've ticked space off your bucket list, what's next?
Well, there are a few things I wanted to do, but because of safety issue, the FAA has banned it. I wanted to do wing walking. They were doing it for some time, and then now it's not allowed, so they stopped doing that. What's next? In my lifetime, if I can do a spacewalk, I would be very, very happy. I'd love to do a spacewalk, but right now, it's not impossible, but it's very expensive.
Well, hopefully, there'll be many more exhilarating adventures right lined up for you up ahead. But at 80, sir, your leap into space, it embodies the belief that it's never too late to chase extraordinary dreams and redefine human potential. Tell us, what do your childhood friends from Agra have to say when you tell them about all your experiences and all your exhilarating adventures?
We talk about Agra. I was born in Agra, but I didn't see Taj Mahal till the time I got married and I took my wife there when I was 30 years old.
Well, that makes two of us.
My birthplace is Agra. I have affection to go back and see my birthplace and see the World Heritage sites like Taj Mahal and Agra Fort. But basically, I was born there. I grew up in city in Punjab, Jalandhar, educated in the Northwest in Pune, worked on the tea plantations in Assam and Darjeeling. And on May 9, 1975, I came to United States.
Mr. Bahel, thank you so much for joining us from Jalandhar right to outer space. It's been an incredible journey for you. We look forward to hearing about all your adventures on NDTV very soon. Meanwhile, let's turn our attention now to the other headlines we're tracking. Former US President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary are among high-profile figures to be sent legal summons for a congressional committee investigating the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Republican James Comer, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, issued the subpoenas to the Clintons and 8 other individuals. Jailed former Prime Minister Imran Khan's party on Tuesday claimed that hundreds of its workers and supporters who took to the streets demanding the release of the party founder were arrested by police in Pakistan's Punjab province. The Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf supporters began their nationwide campaign demanding the release of Mr. Khan, the visuals of which will just play out on your screens. Meanwhile, Hiroshima marks 80 years since the US atomic bombing. Right. Meanwhile, I must inform you that Ukraine's Zelensky held a productive call with Donald Trump, we're told. They discussed drones. This call was ahead of Trump's Russia-Ukraine ceasefire deadline. Zelensky has said that Ukraine is ready to ink a drone deal with the United States. In fact, they've discussed this drone deal in a grand scheme of plan to end the Ukraine war. And do note that the Trump-Zelensky talks were ahead of Steve Witkoff's touchdown in Russia. Thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest for you. Do stay tuned.